So you want to own a Padel club, and you have picked the one sport on earth where the timing looks too good to argue with. In 2020, the United States had fewer than 50 Padel courts. Today it has more than 1,000, spread across 31 states. American clubs are opening more than 50% faster year on year, and the number of people playing has risen 250% since 2022. This is not a niche finding a foothold. More than 70% of every new sports facility built in America in 2024 included a Padel court. In Britain, where the sport arrived earlier, there are now around 1,800 courts and 860,000 players. Spain has over 17,000 courts. So the plan writes itself. You build 2 courts. For people, book them for 90 minutes and pay you between $120 and $160 for the privilege. That is 1 booking in 1 empty box with a net across the middle. Run that court $50 an hour, 6 booked hours a day, and the industry's own arithmetic says 1 court brings in about $9,000 a month. You have 4. You add a coach, a bar, a league night on Wednesdays. And here's the part that makes people actually do it. A court costs less than a car. Outdoor, all in, $40,000 to $75,000. The people selling them will tell you it pays for itself in 12 to 18 months. Every business we have taken apart on this channel priced you out at the door. This one is not. That is exactly why it is worth taking seriously. So the logic is clean. Booming sport, cheap asset, full courts, fast payback. Build the courts, and the money follows the players. That's the arithmetic. Now go and try to fill a Tuesday. Because there's a country where all of that was true, every single part of it, and it still ended in ruins. Between 2019 and 2022, Sweden built more than 4,200 Padel courts in 36 months. More than any country on earth except Spain. In the city of Uppsala alone, the count went from 14 courts to nearly 100 in a single year. By the end of 2024, more than 100 Swedish facilities had closed. 90 Padel companies had filed for bankruptcy. One operator, backed by a major private equity firm, shut 50 of its 63 clubs. Industry estimates put the capital destroyed at close to 500 million euros. Now here is the number that makes this story different from every collapse we have covered. In early 2024, after all of that, more than 600,000 Swedes were still playing Padel. Per head, still more than any country in Europe except Spain. Hold both halves of that in your head. The players never left. The businesses died anyway. Which means the thing you're counting on, the boom, the demand, the sport everyone suddenly loves, was never the thing that decides whether you make money. By the end of this video, you will know what actually decides it. Why the busiest hours of the week are the only hours that exist. Why an empty court costs almost exactly what a full one does. And why the country that loved this sport most is the one that buried €500 million in it. Let's start with the price of admission. This is the cheapest asset we have ever put on this channel, and that is not a compliment. It is the whole problem. A Padel court is a box. 20 meters by 10, glass walls, artificial turf, a net. Outdoors, all in, you're looking at $40,000 to $75,000. The court structure itself can be as little as $35,000. To put that in proportion, a single gym franchise, the cheapest asset we had covered before this one, starts at more than $1 million. Against that, a Padel court is a rounding error. And that is the trapdoor. When the entry price is low, everybody can walk through it, including the 4 people who walked through it last month, 3 miles from where you're standing. Because here's what the low number is hiding. You're not buying a court. You are buying the ground underneath it and the roof over it. And those are priced like commercial real estate because that is what they are. Go indoors and the arithmetic changes shape. An indoor court runs $70,000 to $100,000 and up before you have paid for a single square foot of the building standing over it. And you need that building. Padel is played in the evening, after work, in the dark half of the year. Outdoors, in most of America, that is a business with a season. Indoors, it is a business with a year. So the real number is not the court. It is 4 courts, plus walkways, plus changing rooms, plus reception, a warehouse-sized footprint, in a location close enough to where people work that they will come after 6, which is precisely the most expensive land in any city. The same shape holds wherever the sport lands. In England, one council costed 3 indoor courts at around £140,000, and that is just the courts dropped inside a building the council already owned. The cheap part is always the part you can see. Notice what just happened. The cheap asset quietly turned into a property deal. And a property deal has a landlord. Which brings us to the bill that arrives whether anyone shows up or not. Every business in this series has a cost that does not care about revenue. Padel's version is the most literal one we have found. Here is a Padel club at 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening in February. The lights are on. 4 courts floodlit because nobody plays Padel in the dark. The heating is on because nobody plays Padel in a freezing shed. The doors are open. Reception is staffed. The booking system is running. All 4 courts are full. 16 people. Every slot sold at peak price. Now here is the same club at 11 o'clock the following Tuesday morning. The lights are on. The heating is on. The doors are open. Reception is staffed. The booking system is running. And there is nobody on the courts. Look at those 2 mornings side by side because that image is the entire business. The building does not know the difference. The meter does not know the difference. The only thing that changed between Thursday at 7 and Tuesday at 11 is whether anyone was standing inside it. Keep those 2 hours in your head. We're going to come back to them, and by the end they will explain the whole industry. So let's put numbers on the bill that arrives either way. Staff in a typical club runs 15 to 25% of revenue. Maintenance and utilities together take another 10 to 15. And inside that, one line does the damage. Electricity is the single largest utility cost in a Padel club, commonly around $3,000 a month for a facility running evening floodlights and climate control. Indoor venues pay 30 to 40% more than outdoor ones. Think about what that means for a second. Your product is sold in the evening, in winter, indoors, which is precisely when light and heat cost the most. You cannot switch it off because the light and the warmth are the product. And you cannot pass it on because bookings start dropping the moment a court goes past roughly $90 to $110 an hour. So you have a cost that peaks exactly when your revenue peaks and continues at almost the same rate when your revenue is 0. Hold on to that sentence. In 2022, it stopped being an inconvenience and became a mass extinction, and we will get there. Now the money coming in. And this is where Padel looks healthier than almost anything we have covered. A court in the United States rents for $30 to $60 an hour, split between 4 players. Peak hours sustain prices 30 to 50% above off-peak. Nobody is complaining, because split 4 ways it is the price of a cinema ticket. And it is real money. Not a loss leader, not a bait product. The court hired genuinely is the business. Around 2/3 of everything a Padel club takes comes from selling court time. That is unusual for this series. A hotel sells you a room and then quietly makes its money everywhere else. A Padel club is refreshingly honest. You sell hours on a court, and that is the business. But being honest is not the same as being safe. It means there is exactly one revenue line, and if it stops, nothing else is holding the building up. So operators do what every operator in this series does. They look for the second line. They sell memberships. In New York, one of the better-known operators charges around $210 a month for access across its clubs. And read the small print on what that buys, because it is the most revealing document in this business. It does not buy you Padel. You still pay for your court time on top. What it buys is preferred rates and priority booking, the right to reserve a court 7 days out before the general public gets its turn. So the premium product is not the sport. The premium product is access to a specific hour. $210 a month for a place in the queue. And that tells you something the operator already knows and the buyer has not worked out yet. If the valuable thing is priority, then the courts are not scarce. 1 hour is. Here is where it gets interesting. Because to see what you have actually bought, you have to look at a Padel club the way its own booking software does. Not as 4 courts, as a grid of hours. A club opens 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 4 courts, has 448 bookable court hours in a week. That is the inventory. That is the entire product, and it is manufactured fresh every week whether you sell it or not. Now color in the ones people actually want. Weekday evenings, 5 to 8. Weekend mornings, maybe a Saturday afternoon. That is roughly a quarter of the grid, and it sells out. Everything else. Every weekday morning every early afternoon, the whole middle of every working day, sits there lit, heated, staffed, and empty. Now, if you watched our video on gyms, you know that business runs on exactly the opposite principle. A gym sells 7,000 memberships for a building that holds 300, and it works precisely because almost nobody comes. The money follows the signature. The cost follows attendance. The gap between them is the profit. Padel is that machine running backwards. There is no breakage here. Nobody pays for Padel and then fails to turn up in a way that helps you. Your revenue exists only when 4 human beings are physically standing on your court, and a court holds 4 people at a time for 90 minutes. A gym owner needs you to stay home. A Padel club owner needs you to come, and worse, needs you to come at 7 o'clock on a Thursday, which is the 1 hour he could already sell twice over. So let's go back to those 2 hours. Thursday at 7 and Tuesday at 11. Thursday at 7, Court 1 sells for the top of its range. 16 players in the building for courts gone, the bar doing trade, the coach running a clinic on Court 4. That hour is exceptional. That hour is the reason people build these places. Tuesday at 11, Court 1 costs the same to keep lit, the same to keep warm, the same in rent, the same in mortgage interest, the same in reception cover. And it sells for nothing because it does not sell at all. Same court, same building, same cost. The only variable in the entire equation is whether the working week allows anyone to be there. And you cannot fix that with marketing because your customers are not refusing to come. They're at work. Now, put that against the number from the hook. $9,000 a month from one court. That figure assumes 6 booked hours a day, every day, forever. 6 hours a day, from a grid where roughly a quarter of the slots are ones anyone wants. And here is the tell. The same industry that sells you the $9,000 a month also advises, in its own planning guidance, that a realistic first year should assume 40 to 45% occupancy. Those two numbers are in the same brochure. One is the dream you are sold. The other is the assumption you're told to plan on. And they describe different businesses. Established, profitable clubs get to 50 or 60% blended by year 2 or 3. Operators cite 60 to 70% in peak windows as the line where a club works. Outdoor courts across the market run closer to 45. But even those figures flatter it, because a blended number hides where the emptiness lives. As one operator's guidance puts it, mid-60s utilization midweek can still hide completely empty mornings. So the number on the spreadsheet says the club is nearly 2/3 full. The building says otherwise for most of the hours it is open. That is what you bought, not a court that earns $50 an hour. A small number of genuinely golden hours, subsidizing a heated, floodlit building that is empty most of the time its doors are open. Now let's stand at the door on a Tuesday morning and watch who gets paid out of an hour that never sold. First, the landlord. You sign a lease on warehouse-scale space, close to where people work, priced against the projections you made in your best month. That rent is due on the 1st, and it is calculated per square foot of floor, not per hour of play. Second, the utility. The lights and the heat. Paid per hour the doors are open, and highest in the exact month your outdoor competitors close. Third, the lender. The fit-out debt on the courts, the glass, the turf, and the lighting rig. Interest accrues from the day the money arrives, not the day the first ball is hit. Fourth, the booking platform and the software running your grid. It takes its cut of every transaction that does happen. Fifth, the coach. The clinics and the junior program are how you fill the dead hours, and the person teaching them takes a share of what they bring in. And then you. What is left from the hours that actually sold? Notice the pattern. Every one of them is paid by the hour the building is open. You are paid by the hour the building is sold. Every business in this series has some version of that gap, but here it is the whole business because your inventory is time, and time is manufactured whether you use it or not. So the obvious question, why rent it all? Buy the land, buy the shed, and delete the biggest fixed cost in the model. You can, and the rent genuinely stops being someone else's income. But look at what you just did to the entry price. The $40,000 court that let you into this business is now a commercial property purchase with a Padel club attached. The thing that made Padel accessible was that you did not have to buy the building. And you have changed what you are. You are no longer an operator with a lease. You are a property owner whose tenant happens to be your own business, earning a property return with a sport bolted onto it, which is the answer this series keeps arriving at from every direction. The money that does not have to care about the weather, the season, or whether anyone turns up on a Tuesday is the money that gets paid first. If you want that money, you have to go and buy the position that collects it. The people doing that at scale are usually not Padel people at all. They are landlords who noticed an unusually enthusiastic tenant. Which brings us to Sweden, and the most complete answer any country has given to the question you're asking. Sweden did not dabble. Between 2019 and 2022, it built more than 4,200 courts. Uppsala went from 14 to nearly 100 in 1 year. At the peak, Sweden had around 385 padel courts per million people. Spain, the country that invented the modern game, where it is a national sport, had about 325. Let that comparison land. Sweden, in about 3 years, built itself a denser padel network than the country that has been playing it for 50. And it was not stupid. The demand was real. The courts were full. Every number pointed the same way. And the money that came in was not naive money. It included serious institutional capital. Then winter 2022 arrived, and electricity prices in southern Sweden reached roughly 5 times their pre-2020 level. Remember the cost we said you cannot switch off and cannot pass on? That one. In a country where padel is played indoors, under lights, through a long, dark winter. The bill did not care how full the courts were. It arrived per hour the building was open, and it had multiplied by 5. By the end of 2024, more than 100 facilities had closed. 90 companies had gone bankrupt. The largest operator in the country, backed by a major private equity house, closed 50 of its 63 clubs and wrote down more than 700 million Swedish kronor, around 65 million euros. Another chain took a 24 million euro rescue and went under anyway. Total capital destroyed, by industry estimates, close to 500 million euros. And through all of it, this is the part that should stop you. Swedes kept playing. More than 600,000 of them, in early 2024, still on court. Still, per head, one of the highest participation rates in Europe. This was not a demand collapse. Nobody fell out of love with padel. It was a supply collapse in a market that mistook a boom in people playing for a case for building. And that is the difference between this and every other failure we have covered. A theme park empties when it rains. A hotel empties when people stop traveling. Here, the customers stayed exactly where they were, and the businesses died underneath them. Now, the obvious objection. That is Sweden. Small country, freak energy crisis, overexcited investors. America is bigger, warmer, and later to the game. Except the closures have already started, and they have names. In Oakland, New Jersey, a 3-court indoor club opened and lasted less than a year. The site reopened under new ownership. That one did not last either. 2 operators, same 3 courts, both gone inside a year, which is a verdict on the location, not on the owner. Near Boston, a 4-court club moved its operation to its parent company. The parent then closed. And in Houston, a venue with 2 outdoor courts shut its doors less than a year after opening, despite good reviews and a former Major League pitcher among its backers. The new owner's plan for the courts is the detail worth keeping. They're being paved back over into a parking lot for a restaurant. America passed its 1,000th padel court this year. It is building faster than ever, and forecasts point to real acceleration next year. Clubs closing while the industry sets records. Hold that picture, because that is precisely what Sweden looked like in 2021. And America is not the only country walking this road. Britain is further down it, and it is being warned in plain language. British court numbers went from about 870 at the end of 2024 to roughly 1,800 by the middle of this year. 413 courts went up in 2024 alone. Last year, a European business magazine ran the headline, Sweden burned 500 million euros on padel. The UK is next. Britain is doing this on an island where the sport is played indoors, through a long wet winter, on the same lighting and heating bill that emptied Sweden. Same building, same meter, same working week. The only thing that has not happened yet is the part where the money runs out. In fairness, the American industry has an answer to this, and it deserves to be heard. The clubs that failed, it says, were the ones that did not build community. No leagues, no coaching program, no reason to come on a Tuesday. Run it properly, and it works. And there's truth in that. Programming is exactly how you attack an empty morning, and the good operators do it. But notice the shape of the argument. It is unfalsifiable. Every club that survives proves the rule, and every club that dies is proof the owner did not try hard enough. It is the same explanation Sweden's investors reached for, right up until the clubs holding 70% occupancy were city center sites, and the ones that died were everywhere else. Location and hours were doing the work. Effort was a story told afterwards. So, does owning a Padel club actually work? Yes, under conditions that are unusually specific and almost entirely outside your control. You need to be close enough to dense daytime population that your empty grid has somebody to sell to. You need to be indoors in most climates, which means you need a building, which means the cheap asset was never cheap. You need to arrive before the 4 other people who read the same articles you did. And you need your energy costs to behave for the 15 years it takes to pay the thing off. Get those right, and this is a good business, genuinely good, with real cash flow and customers who love it. Get one of them wrong, and you own a heated, floodlit building, open 16 hours a day, selling for. And notice what is missing from that list. Whether Padel is popular. That question, the one that made you interested in the first place, does not appear anywhere in it. 600,000 Swedes can tell you how little it mattered. So here's the shape of the thing in one frame. An asset cheap enough that anyone can buy one, which is why everyone did. A product made of hours, manufactured every week whether or not you sell them, that expires the moment they pass. A quarter of those hours worth real money and the rest worth almost nothing, decided by the working week and not by you. A cost line that runs at nearly full rate through every empty hour. And 5 parties paid for the building being open before you were paid for it being used. In Houston, there's a rectangle of fresh asphalt where 2 Padel courts used to be. It was poured over a business that failed in a sport that has never been more popular, in a country that is still building courts faster than it ever has. The cars parked on it tonight belong to people eating dinner. So would you actually buy one? Yes or not a chance? One word in the comments. And if there's a business you want taken apart next, drop that too. This one came from a viewer, and it turned out to be one of the best stories we have found. Thanks for watching. Next time you drive past a lit-up Padel court at 9 on a Tuesday morning with nobody inside it, you will know exactly what that hour costs and exactly who is already being paid for it. Subscribe, and we will take another business apart.